Well, I wouldn't speculate on that because I think he was maybe alluding to the fact that everybody is constantly being evaluated, and we're putting everything we've got on the table to try to get a win here next week and then the following week. So rather than speculating about what ifs, I would just say I think that Hugh's making the right decision, that everybody should be evaluated because we are trying to get a win, and it's not about playing for next year. It's about doing what we can to get a win here in our last 2 games.
Joe, this speaking of Hugh, I don't think I've ever seen a coach take everything so to heart. The fact that it's a winless season. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel that from him?
Yeah, he's a very, very competitive guy, probably one of the most competitive coaches I've ever been around. And he really puts his heart and soul in every single game. And there's no doubt about it that he takes it as hard as any coach I've ever seen when you do lose. But I think that's one of his great attributes is the guy expects to win. He really does. And when you don't win, he really takes it to heart. But I think conversely, one thing he does really well is by the time we get back in the facility on Wednesday after putting this game behind us, he's back to being optimistic and positive and brings the energy every week. So I think he's just the type of coach that you want.
Joe, is it frustrating when you see the Bills kind of run at will and put up 280 rushing yards in cold December game, and you guys aren't able to match them that way?
Yeah, they're built for running the football. I think offensively they obviously have a really strong running game, and the quarterback even chips in, he can run, and so they're built for some of these cold weather games, and obviously we need to find a way to try to stop them from doing what they do best to give us the best chance to win.
Not the prettiest game in the world from either side, would you say? Just both teams it was for a week, 14 that we're in, or 15.
I live in my own little bubble, and I just kind of focus on the guy across from me, and sometimes my left guard, seeing if I can give him some tips. So I don't. A lot of times I'm not even really focused on exactly what's happening on the other side of the ball. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm doing what I can, and I don't really think of the game from like a fan perspective like
right.
that.
Well, you can see that people, they would never leave here in years past, and they were leaving pretty early. I don't even know if you looked up, but it got pretty empty at the end.
Yeah, well, I think that's the fact of being a 20-point game, and when it feels like 5-degree wind chill or whatever it is, I don't know if I'd stick around if I was a fan either.
Yeah, the coach said you were helping keep the team up after the game in here. Is there anything particular you had, any message you had said?
No, I think the message is always the same. You have to bring energy and positivity and make the corrections that are there to be made, but it's important to not let any issues fracture a team, especially when you're on having such a tough season like we're having. And my job as one of the leaders is to try to bring that energy and that positivity and make sure that this team is sticking together and putting everything we have into the last few weeks of the season.
How do you do that after a 20-point loss?
Well, I think how you act too. If I was the guy that was sitting in the corner with a towel over his head, I think people would see that and wonder if that's how they're supposed to act. But I think just how you come to work every day is a big part of it.
Do you find any irony in the fact that here Rex Ryan is on the hot seat and they just even their record at 7-7? And
Yeah, I'm not in charge of hiring and firing in Buffalo, but certainly I think there's a grass is greener on the other side mentality a lot of times where it's a competitive league and everyone wants to win and go to the Super Bowl, but sometimes people are a little bit too eager, in my opinion, to fire coaches and get rid of players when they haven't even had an opportunity to put their plan in place. Really, I think a coach needs 4 years. Otherwise, you shouldn't hire him. If you're not going to give a coach 4 years, don't hire him. Hire him somebody else.
Was it disappointing to, after getting the running game going so well against Cincinnati, to come up short that way today?
I guess I don't know what our
Crow had like
stats.
28 yards rushing. Robert had a decent amount.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those I'll have to go back and watch the film on that. I know sometimes when the game gets out of hand in the second half, that's really where you in my opinion, that's where you get a lot of your yards rushing is second half. If it's close, you can keep running the ball, or if you have the lead. But when it becomes kind of a blowout loss, that's when you end up just kind of throwing the ball, and sometimes the numbers don't look well. But I think the biggest disappointing fact from my perspective was at the beginning of the game, the inconsistencies and the self-inflicted wounds where you had sack, penalty, lost yardage run, and it wasn't necessarily the Bills forcing us into those errors. It was errors that we were making on ourselves, and that was really shutting drives out because you're sitting at second and long, and it's hard to get another first down in the NFL when you're in second and long.
In the second half, RG3 ran for, I think it was like 11 yards to the 2, and they called you for holding. Legit, or?
Well, I would dispute it, of course. I didn't see the replay, but from my perspective, I'm not sure if I would do anything else different, or if I could. But that's the nature of the NFL. Sometimes things happen that are out of your control.
How tough is it here that 14 losses ties the franchise record?
I mean, I guess I didn't know that. I
1999.
guess I haven't had a chance to reflect on that, and it's something that you can't really worry about in the middle of the season.